Hi, my name's Starsky and welcome to From the Studio on Clubbing TV. A couple of weeks ago I demoed a reissue of the Sequential Prophet 5, and in this episode I'm going to be taking a look at another reissue of another all-time classic. It's the KORG ARP Odyssey. Well, these have been out for a few years now, and this one was the first to think of the modern reproductions of old monosynths. Maybe the MS-20 was first, I don't know, but KORG have made this, the MS-20, the ARP 2600, followed by Behringer, that have done clones of all of those. So it's a big and lucrative market for manufacturers, and it's great fun for anyone who's into the sounds of these old synths, but hasn't got thousands of pounds to blow on a single monosynth. So first off, let's start with a little bit of history.
ARP introduced the Odyssey in 1972 following the popularity and the success of the Minimoog, and its raw sound has led to it being described as the first punk synthesizer. Oi, Minimoog, you jumped up, self-important posh little git. Listen to the raw power of this dirty fuck. Oh, I do apologise for the profanity, but ever since he decided to become a punk, he's become a cheeky little
Well, I think that's enough history for now, so let's start off by taking a look at what it can do. So on this we get this sort of nice moulded plastic case, which apparently is the same plastic that they used in the original. The front panel's metal with a sort of speckledy, mottled looking effect on it, which is identical to the Mark III ARP Odyssey, and that's where we get the orange livery or the orange signs from. The whole thing's about 80% the size of the original, and the sliders, for example, aren't quite as long as on the original, I don't think, but you know, they're long enough to get really fine control over everything. We've got this weird sort of pitch control on the left-hand side. And the middle one modulates the pitch with the LFO. So just like a pitch bend and mod wheels, not a mad fan of them to be honest, but it is what was on the original. On the back we've got MIDI in through 5-pin DIN and through USB. Got a couple of foot switches and pedals. We've got a low output and a high output. The low output's for putting it into a guitar amp. The high out's what you'd normally use. We've got an external audio input, headphones, and interesting, we've also got CV, gate and trig in and out, which means you can link this up to a modular system, which is a really nice touch. And taking a look at the front panel, the layout is a bit different than you expect or you get on most synths, things like the Minimoog, for example, where you normally have something like the sound sources, so the oscillators on the left-hand side, then you'll mix or blend those signals with a mixer in the middle, and then moving over to the right, you'll have things like an envelope and filters where you shape the sounds. And actually it can be so confusing. I've made a complete walkthrough on my Starsky Carr YouTube channel, so if you want something really in-depth, it's worth taking a look at that as well. But what you discover after getting to grips with it, it's that it's a hugely flexible synth, and all these mad-looking controls allow you to access all sorts of modulation capabilities that isn't possible on other synths of the same age, like something that, like the Minimoog, for example, which was its main competitor at the time. So just to quickly go through, we've got two oscillators, we've got a low-pass filter, a high-pass filter, we've got an LFO, this weird looking sample and hold circuit, and we've got all these switchable modulation sources across the bottom. So let's start off by taking a quick look at the oscillators, shall we? We've got just two oscillators on this synth, and they both have a sawtooth or a square output, and we use the mixer down here to bring them into the signal path. So for oscillator 1, here we go, and we can flick between a sawtooth or a square. So sawtooth, square, and then oscillator 2. And we can see oscillator 2 is tuned a lot lower than oscillator 1. Let's bring it up. And then we've got fine tuning of those. And that means that you can do some really nice things, getting a really big fat tone out of the two of them. So without anything else happening, it just sounds big and fat and beautiful, doesn't it? We've also got a low frequency mode on oscillator 1, and oscillator 2 has got a sync, so it syncs to oscillator 1, giving you those sort of really ripping sort of sounds. Let's have a listen to that. So although we're changing the frequency of oscillator 2, it's actually staying at the same pitch, just bringing in new harmonics. Which is a lovely little trick, and if you've seen a few of these shows, you'll know I like using that to get some nice tension and just changing the harmonics in a tone without having to use the filter. Really nice, and this does it so well. We've also got noise and ring mod, so let's have a listen to the noise. Noise is noise, unless you're playing the ring mod with noise and ring mod. And the ring mod takes oscillator 1, oscillator 2, blends them together through an exclusive OR gate and creates havoc, which can be really foul, dirty and disgusting in a really fantastic way. Let's try that. And if I take out the ring mod, so that ring mod circuit is part of the reason I think why it was known as a punk synth, because it just gets really, really horrible in a really good way. So, although it's only got 2 oscillators, really flexible, so many different types of sounds you can get out of that, but the killer for me is that ring mod circuit, just bringing it in just even a tiny bit. And that's not all, we've also got a duophonic mode. So probably best played with somebody who's better at playing the mini keys than I am, but you can see maybe back in the 70s, mini mode couldn't do that. This comes out, it can play 2 notes at the same time. Amazing. So let's take a look at the filter now. Originally, ARP came out with 3 different revisions, 3 different versions of the Odyssey, which is why you see them with a white face, why you see them with a black face and gold writing, and like this, which was the final version, the Mark III, which has got the black face and the orange writing, and they all had different filters. And what's interesting here is that this one has got all 3 revision filters in it. So they all sound slightly different. That was the first one, second one, and the third one. So you can hear they're all slightly different on the same settings. Well, quite a lot different actually. And they all got their own real sort of qualities, they've all got their own sort of character. That's the third one, second one. And the original one. So actually, yeah, they are quite different, aren't they? They make it sound like a completely different synth. So it's really nice that you get all 3 on this. We've also got a high pass filter. And that drops out all the lower frequencies, so you can get some really searing lead sounds from that. And it's got a drive circuit on this that I've had on all the time. Let's take it off. And it's on all the time because it sounds really nice. And oddly, on the same sort of panel, we've got this VCA gain, which allows the signal just to pass through, so you don't have to go through the envelopes. But that's really handy if you want to bring something in through the external in. Here I've got the Roland TR-09 and I'm playing that through the external input of the Odyssey. And if I turn up the VCA gain, so without playing any keys, And that's something you can't do on most actually. Normally you have to press a key to trigger the envelope. So another really nice little touch. So all in all, a really flexible, cool little synth, and you can see why there's so many variations of it that you can buy these days. But is it for you? Well, this one is the small version with the mini keys, which is around 85% or 80% the size of the original. And you can pick them up now for around £550, whereas a vintage one in good condition would set you back 3, maybe 4 times that. There's also a keyboardless sort of module version from KORG, and that comes in a bit cheaper. As I said earlier, Behringer have also got a full-size version, and that's around £380, and that one's also got effects and an onboard sequencer and lovely little LEDs on each of the sliders. And I've compared the two on my YouTube channel if you're interested in how they stack up. And KORG did make an even more expensive limited edition version, which was £1,400, and I've no idea why that was so much more than this, although it was built in New York, so perhaps it was imbued with the spirit of the Ramones to give it that little bit extra punk attitude. I think that's enough of the punk references for now, thank you very much. Just no pleasing some people, is there? The alternatives are something like maybe the iOS app that KORG have made, and that's just $30. This is on my phone, it comes for the iPad as well, which is insane really, for what you get. It also comes as part of a collection for Mac or PC, and I think it's around $100 as a separate purchase. And then there's the Odyssey 2 from GeForce, and this is about £100 as well. It's got loads of additional functionality, like a sub-oscillator, more envelopes and additional LFOs, but it's still all based on the original Odyssey. And I've compared these emulations to the hardware on my YouTube channel as well. They're both really good little plug-in synths actually, and although they give a great overall flavour of the sound of the Odyssey, actually they both sound really, really good, but I don't think they quite punch like the hardware does. But obviously they're an awful lot cheaper. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, don't forget you can catch it whenever you like on our Clubbing TV YouTube channel on the From the Studio playlist. And if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll see what I can do to answer them. And I'll see you in the next episode of From the Studio.